with the first major Muppet project in 5 years. Yes, we got nothing for 5 years. Like the Muppets were used in things, there was a Muppet Babies reboot, like okay, whatever, that's for 4-year-olds, but no big name original projects for 5 years.
Special video for this. Are you ready for this, Kermit?
What are we gonna do?
Today we are making Kermit the Frog drink the gay potion.
The gay potion?
Yeah, the gay potion.
What? It's gonna make me turn gay?
Yeah, it's gonna make the frogs gay.
What, the frog? Am I gonna be gay forever?
No, just for 1 hour, Kermit. You ready?
Oh my frog gestation, do I have to do this?
You have to do it, Kermit. You definitely have to do it. You try to take over my YouTube channel.
But what if I don't want to do it?
You got it, Kermit.
You're gonna cut me open if I don't do it?
I'm definitely gonna cut you open.
Pixar and just Disney in general has kind of been a dump the past few years because they are kind of low on ideas right now. I think they're slowly entering another dark age around Pixar's.
Launching Disney Plus in late 2019, it was the end of an era for Disney if you ask me, not just because it was the end of a decade. The 2010s for Disney were a time of a lot of dog but fiscal success. 2019 being Disney's best year financially, but one of their worst years content-wise. The 2020s has been mostly dog in its entirety. I can't name 10 acclaimed projects across the entire Disney company. In the past couple years, especially after 2019, their actions absolutely caught up to them and everyone is tired of this mass-manufactured garbage. Disney is absolutely an empire in decline as we speak, but who knows, maybe they'll be able to bounce up back again in the 2030s. Disney dumping billions into Disney Plus shows, like even Willow got a show. Willow. Like, that is desperate. Muppet content was included with the launch of Disney Plus, but wasn't heavily advertised. Lots of promo includes Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic, but no Muppets, despite being an IP that they own. But the Muppets did get another chance at television. Disney Plus also created an outright industry standard at this point of making TV shows that were more like extended movies. So why not make an extended Muppet movie type show? Announced in 2019, the series Muppets Live Another Day was created by actor Josh Gad, and was supposed to be a direct sequel to The Muppets Take Manhattan and would involve the Muppets looking for Rolf. I assume to create an in-universe explanation as to why Rolf disappeared for a fat minute after Manhattan, which would be the last Muppet movie of the boss's life. Despite the potential issue of Manhattan not being owned by Disney. However, in recent years, there have been efforts for Sony-owned Spider-Man media to appear on Disney Plus, so they could work out a Disney Plus Sony deal of a similar nature with Manhattan in the future. Josh Gad claimed that the series would begin in the 80s and end in the present, which is structurally comparable to WandaVision. Steve Martin, who is previously a Muppet Show special guest and makes a cameo in the Muppet movie, was supposed to be heavily involved. Given that he was around age 74 in 2019, I imagine his insert aging with the characters, as well as any other celebrity insert. Taking advantage of being one of the original Muppet Show special guest stars still alive and active in around 2019. The series was canceled due to creative differences, and who knows, maybe they dodged a bullet from the show being set over multiple decades as an excuse to nostalgia bait. But Disney still needed a Muppet Disney Plus series if that meant more subscribers. So what did we get? Oh, you thought 2015 was bad. The sheer laziness of Muppets Now leaves me speechless. I am also speechless because I am losing my voice. Muppets 2015 was an attempt. A horrible experiment, but an attempt to do something new and subversive. Bazinga. 2015 is legitimately good compared to Muppets Now. It's one of the laziest shows I've ever seen. Muppets Now was made by Kirk R. Thatcher. It is a variety show with a more web show approach, with multiple reoccurring segments. The web show angle is a desperate attempt to pander to the youth, as well as fans of the original show and Tonight. Yeah, guys, we totally made a new Muppet variety show, and I guess that claim is technically true. The segments include Lifestyle with Miss Piggy, a fashion show co-hosted by Uncle Deadly, Okie Dokie Cookin', a Food Network spoof hosted by the Swedish Chef, Muppet Master, a show surprisingly hosted by Walter about discovering other Muppets' talents, Mupp Close and Personal, an interview show with no reoccurring host, Muppet Labs Field Test, a Mythbusters-esque spoof hosted by Bunsen and Beaker, and Pepe's Unbelievable Game Show, that title writes itself. Interluding the various web show segments is Scooter being super epic with technology. Every segment of the show is heavily improvised emphasized, and there's none of that off-guard Jerry Jewell dialogue. It only appears to take an improv comedy direction out of sheer laziness, overly relying on celebrities and not actual characters. The improv is incredibly awkward, the celebrities look confused. Zoom call presentation formats are often incorporated, which features lots of just awkward angles. Now, this did come out in 2020 during COVID, but there is often more than one Muppet on screen at once. Using a Zoom-like presentation was not a creative decision to combat creative restrictions, but rather a lazy attempt to be hip with the kids. New character Joe from Legal has a cute design, but that's about it. Clearly just shat out for Disney Plus after the cancellation of Live Another Day. Live Another Day could have just been nostalgia bait garbage, but it was canceled because of creative differences, and creativity is something the franchise in the 2020s lacks. I have a reason to believe it could have been effortful, but I imagine Steve Martin's de-aging technology wouldn't be cheap, and Disney's not really willing to take risks with any of their IPs at this point. Disney had ditched the idea of giving them an extended movie show like the various Marvel and Star Wars Disney Plus series, and their new attempt at a variety show failed because they didn't even try. So what did we get next? Well, over the years there were multiple canceled Halloween specials, something they've never done, but one finally got made. Muppets Haunted Mansion is a 49-minute Disney Plus special. Because generic holiday special 2 was so great, f***ing Kirk R. Thatcher returned. I guess he's the one guy that will comply to Disney's corporate meddling for a paycheck. His Disney-approved vision of the franchise hurting the quality once more. Again, it's a miracle 2011 ever happened. Haunted Mansion is one of Disney Parks' most notable attractions. A big-budget spin on the typical county fair haunted house. It's a very lore-intensive ride, having a mythology to many little aspects of the attraction. Its street cred and pop culture is kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's, where the actual horror story second to the gameplay is what keeps the franchise going. Just replace gameplay with ride. The practical stuff in the attraction is cool and all, but what people are really there for are the lore. It first opened at Disneyland, California in 1969, and despite coming out then, it's not really a 70s horror for adults, but rather a throwback to the conservative horror of the 30s and 40s, which still has a disturbing edge to everything, but it's not like the constant blood and swearing and titties prominent throughout most of the 70s and whatnot. 70s horror catering more toward the prominent youth counterculture of the time. Like Psycho, released in 1960, and it has a scene of a woman in the shower bleeding. There's blood and a woman implied to be naked, like you couldn't do that then. Not one soapy titty in sight, but all the outrage of pornography nonetheless. But one thing about the more conservative horrors of the time is that there was nothing really inappropriate for children, which is a benefit for Disney, a family company. A souvenir that released with the ride in '69 was titled The Story and Song of the Haunted Mansion, featuring an audio drama about teenagers entering the mansion and dealing with its real-world consequences, as well as the studio recording of the musical number in the ride, Grim Grinning Ghosts. The narration being a homage to Vincent Price, who was still alive and would later appear on The Muppet Show as previously mentioned, being resemblant of old radio plays, a throwback to the 30s and 40s, in the 70s. So it has its family appeal of being a little more frightening, but there's nothing worse than you'd find in a mainstream horror movie from the 30s or 40s. Like in the ride, suicide is still implied and whatnot, but, there's no blood or swearing or tits or anything. Not quite PG-13 of a ride. It's PG enough, that's why it's there at Disney. Given that it was a park attraction with a heavy backstory, Disney has tried to capitalize on its lore through movies. Haunted Mansion had a failed film adaptation with Eddie Murphy in 2003, and yet another in 2023. Also failing probably because they released it in August so it could have a theatrical run and be hyped up on Disney Plus by Halloween 23. And Muppets Haunted Mansion is a rare example with a corporate product with some artistic integrity. It's not good, but there is some effort, which is a rarity for Disney in recent years. It's a corporate product with a hint of an art project. The special loosely adapts the story album. In the makeshift radio play, two teenagers enter the Haunted Mansion and encounter the various spirits present throughout the ride, with Gonzo and Pepe entering the Haunted Mansion. Yes, Gonzo and Pepe, not Rizzo. Why not Rizzo? Because Steve Whitmire. Rizzo was removed of speaking roles after Whitmire's asinine firing and has yet to be replaced. Rizzo does make a silent cameo in the special, and there are 2 lines from 2 anonymous rats that Rizzo often appears with. But Rizzo does not speak and only gets to throw a bad CG coin at the window.
What? 'Cause 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 ' Look how they mess with my boy.
But the special is incredibly lazy with a bad exposition dump over FaceTime because they have smartphones now. I don't know why they didn't have a Vincent Price-esque narrator. Gonzo is frightened not by the conflict of being frightened by the ghosts, but being afraid of not being viewed as impressive by his fellow Muppets with their ape antics. Having only one Muppet being multi-dimensional here limits the amount of plot. The lack of plot is a blatant issue. There is some character development, but there's not much of a plot. Probably hindered by its limited 49-minute runtime. I assume Disney didn't want to spend the money to make a full movie. That would be double the budget. In fact, if more Muppets beyond Gonzo and Pepe entered the mansion, it could have explored the fears and insecurities of a handful of characters. At least we don't have to hear Kermit's awful voice a whole lot.
Come down to Freddy Fazbear Pizza, Fred Bear Bear.
Given the effect-heavy concept, an actual movie budget would have helped too. Everything in the special looks shitty and fake. Well, almost everything. Which is probably just Disney production standards' fault over anything else. It's very common for Disney to just green screen nearly every background, and I mean like every background, even like walls and shit. There is a very brief blooper videos which shows some of the effects, and like some of the gates and like one wall is practical, but the rest I assume is fake and it looks like shit. To take advantage of the mythologies mentioned at 999 Spirits, there are tons of Muppet characters brought back, mainly Muppets Tonight Muppets, excluding Clifford obviously. Brian Henson even getting to perform Salmonella, his first performance since Wizard of Oz. I hate the ghost effects. They're far inferior to Christmas Carol. In Carol, Statler and Waldorf were covered in white powder and then superimposed to keep the opacity effect. But here, they just recolored the characters in post and they just added like a ton of blue effects, and like the amount of blue and blur in shots is hard to contemplate when later superimposed. Not helped by the combination of a bunch of lowered opacities in a confined space. Fozzie actually looks fine because he was actually recolored. Like, just make a blue Kermit puppet. Why so much CG on top of superimposing? The bad CG floating skulls and other objects don't help either. The cameo at the end of Haunted Mansion characters Phineas, Ezra, and Gus look like a PS2 game. Maybe more money didn't want to be spent on new puppets since new outfits already had to be made, which at least do a good job of reimagining character designs for the general aesthetic. Kermit resembling Vincent Price. Speaking of Christmas Carol, making Robin dressed like Tiny Tim is an excellent detail. Another positive is the musical numbers, which we hadn't gotten in 7 years. Life Hereafter is actually a pretty great number. Yes, Kermit sings in it, it's a little distracting, but it's pretty clever and fun. Even referencing the dialogue that plays when the ride malfunctions. The other songs are fine, nothing great, but fine. The original song from the story album Grim Grinning Ghost is not fully covered, but is sampled in the opening number Rest in Peace. One of the songs being a cover of one-hit wonder King Harvest's Dancin' in the Moonlight. The special sucks, but it's a step in the right direction. There's stuff to admire, but it's over before it begins and suffers from a shoestring budget. It's mediocre, which is rare for the franchise in 2021. So now that we went from one of the worst shows I've ever seen to mediocre, surely the next thing would be good, right? I f***ing wish. The next Muppet project was another Disney Plus show, one more resemblant of their extended movie formats they done with Marvel and Star Wars. An extended movie sounds great until you realize that it's a Disney Plus extended Muppet movie, with The Muppets Mayhem, which is a steaming pile of shit. The Muppets Mayhem obviously focus on Dr. Teeth in the Electric Mayhem. It's not the worst thing the franchise has to offer, but it is a great example of many of the reoccurring issues through Disney in both the 2010s and 2020s, suffering from many of the same issues. The series was created by Adam F. Goldberg, most known for his sitcom based off his childhood, and Jeff Yorks, a film editor, as well as, most interestingly, Muppet performer Bill Beretta. The Electric Mayhem are not multi-dimensional characters, so putting focus on them in an extended narrative gives them so little to actually do conceptually. I do like the characters, but they're designed for one purpose, being a house band for the Muppet Theater. In the movies, they were never really protagonists for a reason. They only do one thing, play music, and do it well. Of the 6 characters, only 3 speak English regularly. Dr. Teeth, Floyd Pepper, and Janice. Zoot does speak proper English, but not as much as his fellow bandmates. Off the top of my head, I can recall him speaking way more in The Muppet Show Season 1, but being more silent as the show progresses. And Animal is a pure comedy shitpost character, and Lips is the Muppet that did nothing for 40 years. As I mentioned 3 hours ago if you're watching the compilation, Lips was not an original cast member. And he does not appear in the Muppet movie, but he does get to sing in special guest Shirley Bassey for a cover of Louis Jordan's Barnyard Boogie. After the Muppet Show, he appeared in The Great Muppet Caper with like 2 lines of dialogue, probably. Then, jump to Manhattan. Where did he go? Well, he's not with his bandmates, but he is at the wedding, next to other since-abandoned characters like Louis Casager and J.P. Gross. Up until Muppets 2015, he'd be limited to cameo appearances. He is literally in the same shot as Nigel in Muppets 2011. So he was added late into the original show and forgot about once Frank Oz took over. So for this show to work, there'd have to be a heavy emphasis on making pre-existing characters multidimensional. I genuinely think the only reason the show was ever made, beyond Disney Plus subscribers, was to bring back a baby animal and to sell a vinyl record. But let's look at the ads for the show. Baby Groot. Grogu, aka Baby Yoda. Now, after years of research and development, Baby Animal, even though he's not new, he came out with Muppet Babies. So, this Electric Mayhem show is actually just an animal show with a few more things to do since Animal doesn't speak proper English, and that's even more creatively bankrupt. To give the show's one concept, it does take advantage of an odd trivia piece.
Say, look at this. I've been cleaning out my nest, and I found an old book of my poetry.
The fact that there's been tons of in-character Muppet albums over the years, mainly for Sesame Street, but for the Muppets as well. Examples include Rolf's solo debut, Old Brown Ears is Back, and Kermit Unpigged. But oddly, the Electric Mayhem themselves, an actual Muppet band, never got a solo album in character. So part of the show's plot is recording the debut album. The debut album in show got a physical release, which is a cool collector's item. The actual album consisting of the band's covers throughout the show and an original score for the show. This is the only time I've seen something not designed to sell toys to kids, but to sell collectibles to adults. But since it follows the extended movie format of other Disney Plus series, the total runtime of the series is 10 30-minute episodes, which is around 5 hours. 5 fucking hours of characters who aren't important. That is longer than this video, covering 60 years of content if you're watching the compilation. Now, this is actually a common criticism for most of these Disney Plus extended movie type shows, but 5 fucking hours of Muppets who aren't important. What the fuck is even supposed to happen? It is one of the most desperate things I've ever seen. There's not even enough material to work with for a Muppet movie in here. There's not even one good episode. Like, it's not quite as bad as Swamp Years or Now, but it easily pisses me off more because it's so bankrupt and questionable. There are too many human characters with too much focus because there's nothing to do with the actual main characters because it's desperate. Lily Singh plays the main human lead, and she is an atrocious actress in general. If you don't know who that is, she's an incredibly shitty comedy YouTuber. Yes, we have finally gotten to the point where the Muppets has shitty YouTubers in it. Let's look at some of her epic comedy. Now, of course, she's since left YouTube in recent years because she's an annoying bitch with zero talent, but her peak was around 2016. She has an odd emphasis on insisting that she's a bisexual woman of color.
Remember when Frank Ocean first came out? People tried to label him as a gay rapper. First of all, he's bi, not gay. And he's so hot, he's also the reason I know I'm bi, not gay. Not to mention coming to terms with being queer and being Indian. Like, it's an awful running gag throughout her comedy acts. Like, okay, we get it, you're gay, what's the punchline? Nothing wrong with that, but what's the fucking joke? One of her more well-known reoccurring acts being The Parents, which is riddled with not malicious stereotype humor, but lazy stereotype humor.
Seriously?
Hi.
Your cousin Navi stay with her parents. Yeah? Beta, you're not planning to move very far away from your family, right?
No, Auntie.
Okay, I'm sorry, but she does mad drugs, right? You do drugs.
She's just making, like, Indian jokes because she's Indian. Wow, I sure am a quirky, confused Indian girl. It's very 2010 for 2016. She does try to have social commentary sometimes, given her insistence on multiculturalism, being a Canadian Indian, and bisexual, probably for fucking clout at this point, who knows.
Disgraceful beep. What's next? Go see a doctor, you beep.
Her satirical comedy is unintentionally harmful because it's so poorly written. For example, the sketch Therapy with a Homophobic Person is riddled with stereotypes despite trying to teach tolerance, and including the homophobe having a heavy southern accent.
Look, it was Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Childishly insulting the individual for their religion.
And how does it feel to get updates from God? Yeah, does God text you or is God more of a DM person?
I just know what God intended.
And when your friend God texts you a meme, are you all like, oh my God?
Despite trying to encourage acceptance, she got a talk show which is somehow even worse than Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, James Corden, and Ellen DeGenerate. There are allegations of paid actors in her crowds to make her jokes look funnier because, you know, they're so bad nobody's actually laughing at the shit.
You're a bisexual, Lily.
Would have made things a lot less confusing. Ironically, when you have sex with women, though, you don't have to worry about Hogwarts.
Lily Singh being a main human actor in this show is a desperate attempt to pander to the youth that hurts the quality drastically. Lots of humor in the show is social media oriented. Lily Singh's sister is a social media influencer.
I gotta get home and do a live stream makeover challenge.
They use Twitter for the first time. Dr. Teeth starts a YouTube channel. Animal makes TikToks. They dick ride other musicians they didn't want to spend money to actually show up. Rachel Bloom gives an atrocious performance as Sarah Swifty.
And our vengeance shall be swift.
The band plays a virtual concert in Minecraft. It's not even actual Minecraft, it's just shitty CG. They could have saved money by using actual gameplay. There are Minecraft CG videos not made by multi-billion-dollar companies made 13 years ago that look better than a show made by Disney. They don't even build brown bricks in Minecraft. The shitty CG, much like Haunted Mansion, is atrocious and overused.
Use it if you need it.
You couldn't spill a bucket of paint? That's not an expensive practical effect, it's fucking spilling paint. You could have saved money. That looks like complete shit. That is how rushed the shit is. They were unwilling to do something as basic as spill paint. The whole fucking show looks like shit, if you can't tell. In fact, it looks like a fucking Marvel movie. The promotional material fits the hippie character's aesthetic very well with a bright psychedelic color palette. Actually watch the show, it's completely washed out. Like, is this fucking Auschwitz? Why is it so gray? The fan service is also very pandering to adults, so it's not good for either demographic. The musical number, Can You Picture That, from the Muppet movie reappears here where they paint a house for no reason. It's just designed to make you nostalgic for the time they painted a car for actual narrative purpose. It's the only reason the show exists, but the team did a good job of only covering songs fitting their characters. The cover of the Beach Boys' God Only Knows is the standout, and the composition was actually very largely oriented around the instruments that the members play, so it never comes off as the fictional characters didn't play this, not breaking the illusion of an in-character album. The Muppets Mayhem was well received by fans, and I've never disagreed with a fan base more in my entire life, and I like Star Wars, so that's saying something. I am genuinely shocked people liked it. I am completely in the minority on this, but it is a completely creatively bankrupt concept, constantly and desperately trying to fulfill a 5-hour runtime, littered with lazy nostalgia bait and attempts to be hip with the kids. It's not the worst thing in the franchise, but it is easily the most unwatchable just on the basis of its boring everything and asinine runtime. There is no good Muppet movie within this. If it were cut down, it is dog shit the entire way through. Despite its positive reception, it was canceled after one season, implying that there could have been a season 2. As of writing in May 2024, this is the most recent Muppet project. But apparently, creator Adam F. Goldberg wanted to make a Muppet-verse with other Muppet shows to coincide with each other. A smaller franchise within a franchise, presumably with other spin-offs. This is comparable to what is dubbed the Mandoverse, which refers to Star Wars content that is narratively connected to The Mandalorian. And if the Muppets Mayhem becomes the first installment in a Muppet-verse, I have absolutely no hope for it.
And I hope that this show, you know, look, there's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I want the Muppet, comedy universe.
I imagine it's only gonna get worse and more creatively bankrupt with this franchise direction. It is a motive only conceived for profit and to be hip with a cinematic universe, and it's insulting to even think of if you know anything about Muppets. The S in the Muppets has long since been a $, and their creator's goal for the moment has failed. But maybe one day, Disney will actually try, stop fucking jerking off, milking whatever they can off its fiscal inability to completely die, an inability created from decades of painstaking effort. The characters consistently being broken down further and further to nothing but its most bankable aspects, doing nothing but practically slapping the boss that once trusted them across the face. But gratefully, the efforts that granted that immorality can always be revisited and cherished. It is without a doubt the largest franchise artistic fall from grace, and that can apply to any franchise in today's blue Hollywood. But Kermit's corpse has since been long struck in the neck, shot in the cranium, stripped of his gold, and that corpse continues to leak on the side of Disneyland. While the new boss breaks the ribcage of anyone who tries to call an ambulance for poor Kermit. And us at home, there's nothing we can do. A legacy riddled in tragedy has artistically become a tragedy in its own right.
Maybe